All right, good evening, everyone. We are now in the public session portion of the Richland 1 Board of Directors board meeting. We were in executive session until 6:27 p.m. A motion to come out of executive session was made by Ms. Commissioner Devine, second by Commissioner Clyburn. The vote was unanimous to come out of executive session. Before us, we will now call this meeting to order. To my colleagues, let me make this announcement. Our executive assistant is joining us via the phone and online. We will attempt to do our votes, the normal way with the computer, because she can dial in. So she is prepared to take those votes as we normally do. If all fails, we will go manual. But right now, we will be doing electronic voting, okay? Right now is the call of order. 5.1, the invocation by Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to engage in meaningful discussion. Allow us to grow as an organization and nurture the bonds of this community. Fill us with your grace, Lord God, as we make decisions that might affect the students, staff, faculty of this organization, Richland School District 1. And continue to remind us that all that we do here today, all that we accomplish, is for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We ask all these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Commissioner Devine, for providing our invocation. We have 2 items before us, which is the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Wisman, I don't believe there are any changes.
No.
And then, of course, our public participation. We'll now call for the adoption of the agenda.
Madam Chair, move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, the agenda has been motioned for approval by Commissioner Devine, second by Commissioner Clyburn. We'll move for any questions or discussions. Seeing none, hearing none, we will call for the vote.
Here it is.
The ayes have it. The vote is unanimous. Let the records also reflect that all board members are present and in attendance on tonight. We'll now move to 5.3, which is our public participation. This is where a parent or non-parent community member can speak on agenda, non-agenda items. Normally it's for 3 minutes with a 30-second warning at the end to wrap up. However, we are having our comments read in, and on tonight, our communications director, Karen York, will do us the honors of our public participation. Ms. York?
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Witherspoon. There was one public comment submitted for tonight's board meeting. That comment was submitted by Mr. David Oberly, O-B-E-R-L-Y. His comment reads as follows: I again request that you open these meetings to the taxpayers and concerned parents. You are the only district that refuses to. Also, please update the bios for board members. Again, that is the only comment that was submitted.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. York. And again, to Mr. Oberly, the board will not respond on tonight. However, we will respond to you in writing within 7 to 10 business days. This time, we'll move on to the consent agenda, and we will read all of the items in, and if we need to pull anything out, or is there any item that we need to pull out separately for vote? If not, we'll read all of the items in. Okay, the consent agenda includes the following. 6.1 is our minutes from January the 11th meeting. 6.2 is the December 2021 financials. 6.3 is contracts extensions for the musical instruments and supplies. 6.4 is a contract extension for playground equipment. And 6.5 is a contract extension for the application management software solution and HR integration. It's a pleasure of the board.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Myers and second by Commissioner Devine. We will now open the floor for any questions or comments on any of the said items listed in the consent agenda. Commissioner King?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll start with I only have one question regarding 6.05, the extension for the contract of the, what my understanding is that it is the interface between Frontline and Munis, is that correct? And I'd like to know more about that, if whoever is able to respond, either HR or IT.
Ms. King, it is for the PSST, which transfers the information from Frontline into Munis.
So what kind of information? And does it do it automatically with no manual intervention?
No, we do have some manual intervention, and it transfers all of the recruiting and hiring information into Munis so that we can load the person for hiring and pay.
So, Dr. Long, when this came up a while ago, I remember Mr. Black and I expressed some concerns about that because we said that was one more piece of interference where there could be some interference and some issues. And so why if it's an interface, why does it need to require manual intervention? Why isn't it automated?
Well, I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that Frontline and Munis don't read each other.
Well, I understand that, and that's why you have an interface. But usually the interface is so that you don't have to do it manually. That's what the interface, so what are we paying for?
And we don't have to do all of it manually, Ms. King. I can't tell you all the ins and outs of it because I don't do that daily. But it transfers information from Frontline into Munis.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Lomanek?
I've got a question about 6.02,
Okay.
the financials.
7.02. Am I right?
I think
Okay.
6.02.
I'm sorry, gotcha.
The student nutrition services, and I'm a big fan of student nutrition services. I think Richland 1 has the most equitable way of feeding students of any district that I know of in the state. But I noticed that we've got 1.8 million in revenue over expenditures, and I just wanted a little bit of education on how we end up with more money in student nutrition services.
Matthew Hazel.
I can answer that. We indicated here that the State Department of Education received some federal money that was passed down for COVID emergency funds, and they allocated to the funding to school districts across the state based on certain data they received from us. So a big chunk of that, we said we received $1,055,294, and of course it had to be recorded in this year, in the year that we received it. So that contributed to this significant revenue over expenditures occurring this month.
And so how can we use that money going forward? I assume we can't just use it on anything we want. It's got to be related to student nutrition?
Yes. Student nutrition services, they're self-sufficient and they stand alone. So any money that they receive from the state, in addition to what is earned, has to be spent attributed to student nutritional services.
All right, and then, so I know that there were some, as opposed to last year, this year, some of the federal funding would not allow us to spend funds on weekend and, not on holidays for meals for families. Does this money have that same limitation, or is this money that we could use for those purposes when we need to?
This money, you will not be able to
Okay.
use it for that
Okay.
purpose. Yes.
All right. Thank you, Chairwoman Harris.
Any other question? Okay, seeing none, there is a motion before us to approve the consent agenda items as previously stated, so we will call for the vote at this time. Okay, the ayes have it. The vote is unanimous. All of the items as previously stated under the consent agenda have been approved. We'll now move to 7, which is the Office of Operation. We have 6 contracts before us. We'll read all of them in, unless there is a contract that the board wants us to pull out and take a separate vote. If not, we'll read all items in. 7-1 is the Smart Boards Replacement Project. 7-2 is the new cafeteria furniture. 7-3 is Pest and Termite Control Services. 7-4 is the Professional Development Virtual Conference. 7-5 is the contract for structural literacy kits for special education services. 7.6 is the Advanced Social Robots. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bishop. It's been seconded by Commissioner Devine. We'll now open the floor for any questions or comments on any of the said items. Commissioner King?
I think Ms. Loman.
Commissioner Lomanak?
Thanks, Chairman Harris. I've got questions just about 7.01 and 7.05.
Okay, let's start with 7-1.
All right, the smart board replacements, I noticed that we're using ESSER 3 funds, and I just wanted to ask, one, if we've identified which of the allowable buckets permits that, and then two, does that mean we freed up some previously budgeted general funds money that, because obviously we know we're going to have to replace these over time, so I assume that was part of the budget. Would that free up some general funds money to spend on other items?
Mr. Carr.
Yes, we did identify which of the categories we can use this out of. It's been approved. And it does not actually free up funds. We've been putting funds in, but we also reduced the amount of funds that we put into the smart boards over the last 3 years due to the COVID and other revenue streams.
Just help me flesh that out a little bit. When you say we reduced the amount we put in because of
Yes.
COVID, explain why COVID reduced the amount we put in to budget for smartboard replacement.
Prior to COVID, we had reduced it because of the funding we were getting, the total funds, and that was one of the areas we reduced, and we're going to go back and increase that. So with COVID funds, we're able to do some of those that we did not do in the past 3 years, and that was just like the travel and replacement vehicles and others. Those are some of the items we reduced about 3 years ago. We were putting $2.5 million into the PC replacement and smartboard replacement. Right now, we're only putting about 1.5 in the last 3 years.
Okay, I appreciate that explanation. And then I've just got a question or two about 7.05, the structure literacy kits. I know that we approved some funding for Orton Gillingham related, was it just training or were there also materials with that? This was a couple meetings ago.
Dr. Hagwood.
Good evening. You've approved, that was for materials and for training for Orton Gillingham.
And these materials are also kind of Orton Gillingham approved or Orton Gillingham consistent? Because I know that's a very precise, intensive, obviously, method that requires its own materials, but these will work with Orton Gillingham, education?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
That's all for me. Thanks, Chairman.
All right, thank you, Commissioner
Chairwoman
Lomack. Any other questions? Commissioner King?
Yeah, so I'd like to go back to 701
Smart boards.
on the smart boards, correct. So do I see here that it's only for the removal of outdated smart boards? Is that right? Just the outdated smart boards?
That is what it's in the scope.
That's correct.
It's for the outdated and any that are in disrepair.
I'm sorry, repeat, I didn't hear what you said.
Any that are outdated or in disrepair that need replaced.
Okay, so 2 questions. One is, what do we do with the outdated ones? Or the ones that are broken?
Miss
Yeah, Dr. Copper.
Candace
While she's
Cobb
coming
is
up,
coming
yeah,
up to
they
the
can
podium.
dispose of those. But depending.
Good evening, everyone. How are you doing this evening? Good evening. Good. So the outdated ones and the ones that are not able to be used will be disposed by the vendor. So the vendor will transpose those. They will take those off and dispose of those.
Okay, so there's no recycling or any way that we can recoup anything based on recycling?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and who's the vendor?
The vendor is Smarter Systems of Charlotte.
Okay, so the vendor the same vendor that we buy those from?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And my second question is, when I looked at the series of schools, it just happens we're at LR, and so there's a pretty wide discrepancy for LR, and so my first thought is, well, gee, are they the one that had the most outdated ones? Why such a discrepancy?
So we went through all of the schools based on the number of ones where they were in the replacement cycle. And so we went through all the lists of all the ones on the list for replacement. We did a walkthrough of all the schools. And so we went to the ones that were the ones that needed to be replaced on that cycle.
Okay, you understand my concern is that, because there's such a discrepancy, have they had more broken and more outdated than other schools? And
Yes, ma'am.
okay, let me see. Thanks for that clarification. On 703, the pest and termite control, is that district-wide?
The 7-3.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a district-wide?
It is a district-wide contract. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is this a local vendor that's able to address all of the needs that we have?
This is a vendor, Orkin Pest Control in West Columbia.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Right, any other questions, Commissioner King? Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done, thank you.
Okay, awesome. I had a follow-up question for Dr. Kopic, for a point of clarification. As you talked about the smart boards and the total here at Lord Richland, in that cycle, and I remember when we installed these smart boards, as we got them in, we put them in schools. And when you came into the schools, I guess, I don't know how y'all were doing a rollout, but I know we do the DLE rollout in a certain manner, as well as anything that we roll out in the district, because we can't just flood the whole district with everything. But based on that cycle, just like we do with uniforms and band equipment, it's time for those particular schools or this particular school to have that many discarded, is what we're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, to make sure that it's their turn in the cycle to have those, because I know that I'm being told that smart boards, sometimes what's embedded in them is upgraded by the manufacturer, which is a smart thing. So we have to upgrade as well, just as we do with cell phones and computers. It's a smart board, so to a certain extent, it's a computer that
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
using. So just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Yes.
Crockett. All right, are there any other questions or comments before us at this time? If none, we will call for the vote. Okay, the vote is unanimous. The vote is 7-0. All items as previously stated under the Office of Operations have been approved. We'll now move to 8, which is the Office of Human Resources, the hiring of personnel. Dr. Long.
The administration recommends hiring all teachers on the attached list for the 21-22 academic year. There are 2 teachers listed. The administration so recommends.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation of the administration. What's the pleasure of the board?
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Devine and second by Commissioner Bishop. We'll now open the floor for any questions or comments. Commissioner Lometnak.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Just one question, Dr. Long. So I know that we've hired, this would be 2, and then last meeting we hired a few. Can you tell us how many, not openings, but how many teacher vacancies there are right now? That number seems to be going down, I hope.
We have 88.
88?
Yes.
So last time I think we had 83. Does that mean we've had some more resignations in the last 2 months?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner, I'm sorry, Dr. Long, I'm finna promote you again. Job fair, where are we at? Do we have one scheduled here coming soon?
For this coming Saturday,
Okay, this Saturday, is it virtual?
it's virtual.
Okay, awesome, wonderful, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? If not, we'll call for the vote at this time. The ayes have it, the vote is unanimous. All items as previously stated under the Office of Operations, Hiring of Personnel has been approved. We'll now move to 9, which is the Office of the Board. This is where board members can speak on agenda, non-agenda items, other than doing our chat with the chair and some of the other events that we're engaged in. I want to get started first by giving a few updates, and we'll have Commissioner Devine come with our legislative updates on the tail end of this. Our board retreat, we're looking at March. This is that quarterly review that we do with the superintendent as it relates to his goals. Any other additional ask of the board to be on the agenda, we ask that you email that request to Eva and copy myself. You've also received some information on the Cognia virtual meeting. We ask that you do follow suit with being on that Zoom meeting. That is very important. Also coming up after we get past our reaccreditation process, we will begin to work on our redistricting efforts. This is not rezoning of schools. This is redistricting of voting lines. We did have our redistricting done in 2016, so our numbers are fairly new compared to the other municipalities out there, but we still are required to do it after the census. We will begin that effort after we get past reaccreditation. So we will start working with the superintendent to line those public meetings, et cetera, that we have to do. So just want to make sure that's on everybody's radar. Also, I'm encouraging my colleagues to please be at the annual school board conference. I know Commissioner Devine will probably speak to this. As you all know, there are several items. There are about 20 what do you want to call it, bills on the floor that directly impact the operations of schools, et cetera, funding, board members, et cetera. We ask that you please be in attendance to the school board conference if you are able to be there. And then lastly, and I can pass this out if I need to, a few things that we need to go over to make sure that there's clarity amongst the board. Our school visit policies, and I have copies that I can give to everyone tonight. I thought it was one of you would be the teacher's helper. We won't review these tonight, but we just want to make sure that everyone has it in hand of our school visits, how they're to be conducted through our executive assistant's office to make sure that we keep in mind that we are in a pandemic. Our principals are a lot of times bogged down with updating dashboards, et cetera. I've heard it all. Want to make sure that the proper people are being notified. So what we're distributing right now is the actual policy that speaks to how we conduct our school visits, which is welcomed. It's a great thing that we want to be in the schools, but we just ask that we adhere to our own policy. Secondly, when it relates to policy review, when we are conducting our committee meetings, the committee meetings are a subsector of the general board meetings. Any vote or decisions to review policies is to be taken up by the full board in the board meeting, which is what tonight is. So we ask that our colleagues make sure that if there's a policy that you'd like to see reviewed, we welcome that with open arms because we are a team, but we ask that you bring it to the entire board. So we have a copy of, I believe it's our procurement procedures, so everyone can look at that. Remember, there's not really a whole lot of policies around procurement because we follow a procurement code of procedures. So that's why we've included that in the packet, that you all have that. So just want to make sure that you have that on hand as well. so that we can continue to conduct business in the district in an orderly fashion. At this time, I'm going to yield to Commissioner Devine, who will provide us our legislative updates.
Thank you, Commissioner Harris and the Chairwoman. Good evening to everyone again. Our legislative update as it pertains to, I'll start with School District 1 and then I'll go to the state level. I want to thank Dr. Witherspoon and the staff, Ms. York. We do have the 2022 legislative platform, which we all participated in last year, and we have some focus items for the 2022 legislative session. Those, just real quick, Richland 1 opposes the takeover of schools and school districts. Richland 1 supports legislation allocating state funds for the expansion of broadband statewide to ensure every student has access to the internet. Richland 1 opposes legislation that would require third graders to be retained based on a score on the state test. Richland 1 believes the General Assembly should fully fund EFA and the base student cost. Richland 1 believes the General Assembly should prohibit lawsuits from any child and or adult, including district employees who believes he or she contracted COVID-19 while at school. And Richland 1 believes that local school boards should establish the school calendar, including the school start date, without limitations from state government. These are just some of our priorities. This is also on our website for anyone who wants to take a look at this. This has been mailed to our delegation here in Richland County. Each of them have a copy of this. I did speak with our chairman, Chairman Leon Howard, who is, we're getting some dates together so that we can have a local delegation meeting so we can discuss these items and many others as it pertains to education in Richland 1. And then I'll switch now to the state level. I had opportunity to testify before the Senate, House Bill 935, which is the ESSER or the voucher bill, that we do not think that is a good option for the state of South Carolina. We do oppose that. We gave several reasons as to why we've done that. They will have a third reading on that one item, I believe is tomorrow as well. And then in the House, there are several bills that will come before the House Education Committee beginning on Wednesday. And some of those bills pertain to CRT. Most of the 5 bills that will come before the committee tomorrow pertains to CRT. And I quote that State Superintendent Molly Spearman has publicly stated that CRT is not a part of the state social studies or history curriculum standards and are not taught in South Carolina schools, end quote. And so I do want to make that known that CRT is not taught in the state of South Carolina or is a part of the curriculum standards. Some of those bills include House Bill 4325, which prohibit public schools and higher schools of higher learning institutions from compelling students to personally affirm, adopt, or adhere to tenets of critical race theory. House Bill 4343, which enact the South Carolina Academic Integrity Act, which would require K through 12 public schools to provide an opportunity for public input on their instructional materials and curriculum that must be posted on their website. Prohibiting the teaching and use of the 1619 Project or its tenets. House Bill 4392 would enact keep partisanship out of civics that would, among other things, prohibit civic teachers in public schools as part of their course requirements from discussing current events or controversial issues, requiring students to participate in lobbying, affirming certain beliefs about race. House Bill 4605 would affirm the dignity and rights of all individuals to be free from ideological coercion and indoctrination of places of learning. And then House Bill 4799, a bill that would prohibit a lot of things that include public schools and other institutions of higher ed and political subdivisions of the state from affirming, adopting, or adhering to any tenets of the critical race theory. And these meetings are live via broadcast starting tomorrow at noon. Some were held today. Some will be at 9:30 in the morning. So I would encourage our community, to attend these via broadcast live, and then submit necessary comments as you see fit. Some of these meetings The public will not be allowed to give testimony, but it will be debated amongst the committee members. And then going back to the Senate, again, the voucher bill will be presented again or discussed, a third reading on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. And so want to keep you all abreast of that as well. Now, the Senate Education Committee will take up Senate Bill 946, which is mandating 30 minutes of unencumbered time for teachers. It directs elementary school principals to provide at least 30 minutes of unencumbered time during each regular school day to classroom teachers. And there's some other items in this bill as well. And so again, this will be taken up. And then House Bill H350, which would allow schools to hire up to 25% non-certified teachers in an effort to recruit more teachers, hire more staff. That bill will be taken up as well. And there are many, many more. So these are just some of the ones I want to highlight as well. And so we'll keep you abreast as to what happens with these bills. Do keep a lookout for these, and I'll update the board as we get additional information. Madam Chair, that completes my report at this time.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Devine. And let me put a plug in there for that board retreat in March. Eva will poll the board. She will give you a few dates for you to look at, which will work best for you. So please let her know so we can begin to set the agenda. And remember, if you have any items you would like to add to the board retreat, please give it to her at that time so we can go ahead and start planning for it. We'll open up the floor now for any additional reports from any board member. Commissioner Lomanek.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge a wonderful visit actually at Lower Richland High School here last week. I appreciate Assistant Principal Beckett and Dr. Hersey's time showing me around, but more importantly, I got to watch students be inducted into 5 different career and technology related student organizations. So that was awesome. And as always, that was the highlight of my day. And I want to thank Assistant Principal Irby and Mr. McClinton, whom I've known for a long time, who showed me around C.A. Johnson today during their literacy time, and I really appreciate that time and what I learned today.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Lomanek. Any other reports? Commissioner King?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll be really brief. It's time to open the board meetings to the public. We are completely out of compliance with the law. Live feed is not a replacement for open. So I move at this point that we put on the agenda for the next board meeting that our board meetings will be open to the public.
I'd second that motion.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to put on the agenda meetings being opened back up to the public. It's been seconded by Commissioner Lomanek. We'll now open the floor for any questions or comments from any board member. Commissioner King?
Madam Chair, maybe we need to clarify this. Did the board vote at any point to close the meetings?
No, we were under emergency order at that time when this initially happened. And so we've been working under those pretenses at this time.
Right, and so as soon as the state of emergency was lifted was the time that we needed to open back up, right? So does this even require a vote?
I'd like to hear from legal counsel.
While the meetings were voted to be closed, the board, I would need to go back and look at what happened at that time, but there was discussion and a vote in terms of how the meetings would be held, and I'll be glad to bring that back at the next meeting.
Okay.
She is correct. I do remember that because we had to change some policies based off what we got from SCSBA at the time.
Right.
That was in March. And then the very next meeting, we did change some policies. And so I don't have those in front of me, but we can take a look at that. But yeah, we did vote to change the policies, which in turn changed the meeting setting. So,
Well, but that did, okay, but the changing the policies was in reaction to the state of emergency under which we are not anymore. So I really question even the need to vote to reopen the meetings. But at this point, it's way past time that our meetings be open.
Let us allow Attorney Williams to come back to us, but I do have a question. I guess, Ms. King, you can help me with this one. When you say that we are violating the law, what law are we violating? Because the law says the school district is to provide access to the meeting, which we are doing virtual, and their ability to communicate to us. The board meeting of commissioners is a meeting of 7 duly elected folk where we discuss the business of the district. And our responsibility to the public, and this is not to shy away to our responsibilities. Truth be told, yes, I would love to have everyone present, but there are a lot of things that I think we have to consider: the safety, health, well-being. I think the General Assembly right now is not open to the public. The gallery is not. So I need to understand because sometimes when we say violating the law, that's kind of harsh. So I need to understand what law we are violating, because the law says that the board meeting is the meeting of the board conducting the business of the school district on behalf of the constituents, the community. And we're responsible for providing them access. We are virtual, we are live stream, which was something we never did, but we went live stream so our communities could see these meetings in real time versus going back to pulling them up and retrieving them off the website. We also have in place a way for them to communicate with us. Ms. York tonight read in comments that were provided from the community. So I want to understand what law we're breaking and take me to where it's in law so we'll know, because if we're breaking the law, no, we don't want to break the law. But I think before we say we're breaking the law, let's look at the law and let's clarify whether or not we're breaking the law. The law tells us to provide access. That's almost like educating a child. You know, the law doesn't say it has to be face-to-face. It says we have to educate the child. That's the law. So if a child is in a discipline matter, and I know this is something totally different, but again, it's law. It says that the district is responsible for educating the child, just as the Board of Commissioners, as a duly elected body, is responsible for conducting the business of the school district and providing access. So the key word is access. So, you know, what law are we violating? So we'll all know so we can get this on track and we're breaking the law.
And I'll be glad to answer that question.
Yeah, okay.
It's the law of open meetings, and providing electronic is not a substitute for opening the meetings to the public in person. That's
so
what
can
the law
you
says.
can you email that to us so we'll all have it? It's called the law of open meetings.
It's called the open meetings. What governs governmental agencies are open meetings, and open meetings doesn't mean live feed. It means physical presence.
Okay, I think open meetings is probably limited to interpretation when it comes to open meetings. We're not. That's one of the reasons why FOIA, you know, the thing that we all love to talk about. That's why we don't conduct votes in secret. We have to conduct the votes in public where the public can see openly. Right now, this is an open meeting, even though the only individuals in the audience are staff, Dr. Witherspoon staff, and IT folk that are streaming this for us tonight. So the meeting tonight, Attorney Williams, you correct me if I'm wrong. Is this not an open meeting? Is this, you're the lawyer on staff, so is this not an open meeting?
It's open.
It's an open meeting. It's open because what we're doing is in real time, and the public has access to it. We're not having a secret meeting back in the closet. It's an open meeting. But the law, what the law requires of us is to provide access. And you know, I'm not going to be on the soapbox about this, because at the end of the day, yes, we want to open back up, but we got a variant out here right now that has impacted everybody in this room and beyond. There are a lot of people sick. We have to take into consideration that those individuals sitting out there in that audience, along with the superintendent and his staff, are in school buildings, start tomorrow. So one of us can be positive in here. So sometimes the smaller the number kind of helps lower the spread, Aaron. You know, so I want to put that out there for what it's worth. I don't think that the board is trying to do anything wrong in keeping us like this, because in that case, then we need to open up everything. We need to go back to face-to-face chat with the chairs. We need to go back face-to-face committee meetings. You all are sitting and taking committee meetings virtually. And I don't hear anybody squawking about, well, we need to come back to the building and have committees. So if we're going to open, we need to open everything. But is that a wise decision right now? Do we still need to be cautious and careful, as they're saying we'll come off this peak in February? So is it safe for us to play it smart? Richland won, and I don't knock any district, but one thing we've done well is kept our numbers down. There are districts that have had to go virtual. I've talked to folk where major outbreaks in schools, and I really believe our mandate in masks really had a lot to do with why our numbers are as low as they are. And we still want to be careful, we still want to be cautious, but we still want to make sure that the public has access to the meetings. And I believe we've done a good job of that. I think we still need to be careful and cautious, because there are districts out there that are saying they should have done what we did, because they're spread. They've lost faculty that left meetings and got sick. We buried 2 board members in the state of South Carolina, 2. In the same district. And I don't want to tell you the story behind it. Commissioner Devine knows it. That's why we still have to be a little cautious right now. And hopefully Omicron is the last of this, prayerfully. But it's a risk right now, guys, that we are all taking. Our children, the faculty, staff. I don't want any parent to come to a board meeting and get sick. So we can continue to discuss it and deliberate. And I'll yield at this time for any other comments. I think Commissioner Bishop, you had your hand up?
No, you stated some of the same thoughts, so I won't repeat them. But if I recall, it was a suspension that we voted on, right? When Chairman Devine was chairman, that's what we voted on. It was a suspension of our own policy.
Right.
So when my colleague said the law, I'm interested, which one did we really abide by from the beginning? Because we went according to our own policy to suspend. So I'm interested to hear what comes from this discussion, so that, as you stated, we don't want to do anything illegally.
Right.
And if it was, have we been doing it since we suspended our own policy? To come up and bring it now is also making me understand that if we're going to open it up, do we tear down these barriers as well? Do we go back to SAB, where all of the staff has to be in that same room? Do we do also conversations about our bus drivers and their protection? So it's going to need to be a full conversation than just opening a meeting. And that takes something from this administration to bring to us as well. So that's just what I'm trying to see about this whole vote and the second that's on the table. And maybe that's just the discussion I want to have.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Bishop. Any additional? Mr. Lomanak?
Yeah, I do think that we need to spend more time looking at the legality of it. Just a quick search online, there are South Carolina attorneys that do believe that not having a public meeting when you're not in a state of emergency does actually violate the law. Attorneys differ all the time, but I think we need to have more thought given to that than this discussion. But I personally, if the prior vote was based on the state of emergency, once the state of emergency dissolves, I don't think that prior vote gets to continue in perpetuity, but more importantly, I think what we're doing unnecessarily breeds distrust. We can absolutely have people in here and still use precautions, still use these dividers, still use masks, just like we're asking our teachers and students. I was in this auditorium last week. I was in the Dreer gym last week. I see teachers and students going on field trips. And they're still using precautions, and I'm glad they are. We can use those same precautions. Just having the public come in doesn't mean we ignore masking or that we ignore dividers. We can still have people come in. We can limit the numbers based on physical distancing. Frankly, these auditoriums are pretty large. I am troubled, as some teachers have pointed out to me, that we aren't willing to do what we've been asking of them in terms of having adults or kids in their classrooms and field trips and sporting events. I think we can do it safely, and I think this is an unnecessary self-inflicted wound when people want to come and we're not allowing them to do it. I think it's an easy thing. I think live streaming is awesome. I think it's worked for the most part. Since I've been a member, I haven't seen any issues. So I am super impressed with that. I think that adds some people who can't get to the meetings, and I think opening it up to the public, make sure that some folks who do not have Wi-Fi access but do have a car can also get to the meetings. I think doing both makes sure that everybody who wants to participate can do it, and I'm all for the more the merrier. And I'm sure there's going to be somebody that shows up at a meeting at some point and yells at me, and that's okay. But I think that we need to allow folks to come. Thank you.
And I appreciate that comment. Are there any other comments? Before I go to Commissioner Myers, let me say this. When we say open up a meeting to the public, let me clarify. The meeting is open to the public. Let me be clear. Every vote has been taken on a stage at either Lower Richland, C.A. Johnson, Eau Claire, or Dreher High School. So every meeting has been open to the public. So what you're saying is you want in-person individuals allowed to come into the already open meeting. I'm fine with that. Honestly, I don't understand, and this is just my personal take, and take it as what I say, Aaron. What is it that needs to be accomplished in person that we have not provided access to? It's a meeting that you cannot talk out of order, because it's the meeting of the board. You're only allowed to speak as you sign up. We have access to that. So the question would be, well, what needs to happen in person at the meeting that we don't know about? We'll continue to discuss this. Please get the information back to us. Ms. King said that the law is called the Law of Open Meetings. So we need to research that. I'm going to yield to Commissioner Myers at this time.
Excuse me, I just want to also add, if we going to have this meeting open to the public, guys, we got to look at the whole bigger pictures, because we got a lot of parents that would like to come back in the classrooms. So we need to think the whole process through. So when you open the doors halfway, you need to think the whole complete process through, not just benefiting this meeting. We got to think about the full process from Richland 1.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Myers. Commissioner Clyburn, and before Commissioner Clyburn, Dr. Witherspoon and I was on a Zoom, and I want to share this to those that are listening and to my colleagues. Commissioner Devine, there are policies that prohibit certain things in the school district, and there's science. And the school district is stuck in the middle. We have to adhere to what the science tells us. We have to adhere to what the policy tells us. For instance, I have parents saying, y'all need to go virtual. I said, hey, have you heard of H1-103? He said, no. It's a proviso, Mr. Carlin, that will take 47.22%. See, I study my stuff of our base student costs. That's almost 50% of our funding away. If we take more than 5% of this district, 5% of this district is AC Flora alone. Let's do the math. So, as I said to the superintendent, and on this call, you have 52 schools. Dr. Brazar, what school do we save? And what's the other 51 that we have come back in person? There's a lot of things we have to consider when it comes to open back up. And Commissioner Myers, you said it, frankly, perfectly. Then the board needs to come to SAB for their committee meetings that you've been taking warm and cozy, drinking and sipping your coffee by the fireplace. And the board needs to no longer do chat via the Zoom and show up at the school. If we're going to open face-to-face, not open up for public access, but open up for face-to-face. Okay? So the risk factors now are out there for everybody. Okay? So, consider all of those things. Commissioner Clyburn and then Commissioner Bishop.
So there was a comment made by one of our colleagues a few minutes ago about our meetings being virtual but open, there being an element of distrust. I'm baffled by that, because I'm wondering, we have everything that's exposed here. We have clear partitions. what exactly would be something that we're hiding? Are we passing notes and, do we have some invisible, shields or something going on? I just don't understand what's to be distrustful about what we're doing. We're on open mics, everything can be heard and seen. So I'm a little baffled by that and concerned about, what the true intentions of, this attempt is. I think we'll be making the right decision, the safe decision, at the right time. And I'm not saying either way, what's going to happen in the future, in the near future, possibly, but I just think we just need to be a little careful and a little more, cognizant of the words that we choose. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Clyburn. Commissioner Bishop?
Very, very brief. Commissioner Lomanak said something about the position to the extreme that, we should be to do everything that our teachers are doing. The other side of that extreme is our teachers should be doing what we're doing, our coaches. So just a thought, if we are virtual and not in person, that's what it's really, not in-person meetings, right? Then the consideration and conversation also has to go towards should games and attendance be in person as well. So just to add from one extreme to another, that as this conversation goes forward, that if the leadership of the board is operating like this, then is there a conversation about how attendance is at games, which are in-person attendance? 'Cause I remember one time we had a middle school basketball championship and it was totally virtual. It wasn't in person. So when we had this discussion, as many have already said, look in the totality of the district, not just a board meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Bishop, and we appreciate that information. Appreciate the conversation from everyone, because everybody's comments are important to know where everyone stands and how they feel about the matter. What we're going to ask of Attorney Williams is to come back to the board with the statement of law as it relates to law of open meetings and where we stand, if we're violating that. And we need to have some discussion, because I noticed no one said anything about, yes, let's do committees face-to-face. Okay? Again, if we come to committee face-to-face, you now have to bring in Dr. Witherspoon's entire staff in a location for it to be viewed. But if we're going to open it all. We're not going to pick and choose, because like I said, as I sit in this meeting, it's an orderly conducted meeting. I'm glad to know that, our constituents want to come and see our face. We want to see their face too. But again, it's orderly. It's not with the outrage and et cetera, as Commissioner Lomanak alluded to, that, they might want to come and yell at you, but they're not supposed to come and yell at you, because that doesn't happen in board meetings, not in Richland 1's board meetings, that is. We need to make sure that we are following the law, as Commissioner King has stated in her request. So we'll go back to the vote. If there's no further discussion, okay, I got two hands. All right, and by the way, all school districts in South Carolina are not back in person. I want to clarify that. Commissioner Lomanak and then Commissioner Devine.
I just want to clarify, the person I was thinking of when I was talking is an older woman who does not have internet access, and she has things she would like to say to us. Now, I could tell her to go figure out a cell phone and figure out how to email a statement or go use somebody else's Wi-Fi access, but I didn't feel comfortable telling her that's what she needed to do. And so from her perspective, she isn't able to speak to us in the way that she wants. Now, we can tell her that her way is not the way we want to do it, but that's fine if that's what we want to tell her, but that's what I'm talking about when I say breeds distrust, because from her perspective, we are shutting her out of her ability to come speak to us, because that's the way she knows how to do it. So that's what I was talking about.
You really have me baffled now, Commissioner Lomanek, because we have cell phones, we have office numbers, we have email, and anyone that has wanted to get a hold of this board, trust me, has gotten a hold of this board. So you're saying she needs to come to the school board meeting to talk to us, is what you're saying?
For public comment, the only way to submit it is if you've got internet access. We know plenty of people don't, not only, some people don't have internet access because they can't afford it. Some people don't have it because they don't have internet access.
Right.
She's also elderly.
Right.
She does not have a way, at least it's easy enough for her to use, to send us a public comment to be read. She wants to come say it. I just think that she should be allowed to come say it at this point. I wouldn't have said this, you know, when we were in the midst of...
But she has access now, because if she's reached out to you that much, find out from her what she needs. See, we serve a part here too, so if she's talked to you that much to say, I got something I need to say, you're a part of this board.
Well, yeah, and I met her in person at a community meeting, but, so, you know, I don't have her contact information, but this is what she told me. I don't have any reason to distrust her.
Right.
But again, that's what I'm talking about, though. Are we going to tell, I mean, do we really think that there aren't people that don't want to come to these meetings because they want to stand up and talk to us in person rather than have somebody else read it? Mm-hmm. We realize we've talked all the time about all the families that don't have access to the internet. That was one of our complaints about e-learning. Mm-hmm. And I agreed. I did not think that we should be able to just switch to virtual learning in a week or a month because we've got thousands of families that literally do not have access to the internet, no matter how much money they have.
Right.
So I do want to be careful about that. I mean, there are people who want to speak, and we can judge them for wanting to speak versus emailing it in all we want, but they are our constituents. Right. And if they want to speak and we can have them come here safely and do it, and I think we can, then I think we should do everything we can to make sure that happens.
And I hear you loud and clear, but remember too, we do have the phone. Dr. Witherspoon, do we need to set up a hotline for those individuals that don't have access to the computer, that they can leave their comments? I know we have them. Is that something we can look into if we're going to continue this? Because I would say, I got you, Commissioner Bishop, I would say that, you know, we definitely, Mr. Lomanek, to your point, we don't want to shut out anyone with their comments. Let me be real clear, and you bring up a good point. Everyone does not have internet access. So should the hotline have been something we looked at from the beginning as well, to retrieve comments from our constituents? So thank you for sharing that. Commissioner Bishop?
Yeah, Commissioner Lomanek, I can give some sensitivity to the story, and I'm pretty sure case-by-case basis is many of those stories. But to the other extreme, let me give you one other story that is part of this whole conversation. Now, we're dealing with a mask mandate, which we think that all students, all staff must wear masks. Forgive me for taking mine off, just make my point clear. But there's one parent who's adamant about not wearing masks. And I think I see your defense attorney skill set coming out, and I know you got a comment coming because you took your mask off. I jokingly say that across the table. But I don't want to get into a slippery slope of subjective content on this table. Mm-hmm. The objective is to allow us to let the vote and the discussion be what it is, and we follow the objective conversation from the administration. When they bring stuff, we exercise our thought and critical nature towards what's being presented. And I think that's where we are, because we're going down a slippery slope where we're going to probably go case by case base about the opinion of in-person, mask, this, that, and other, from one extreme to another. But I believe that we're going to have to allow the administration to do what they have always done. Mm-hmm. Bring us the science, bring us not the subjective comments, because we're going to bring opinions all from our different communities, all from our different constituents. Let this administration bring something to this board, and we vote.
That's right.
If we vote to suspend, then I think we're back at the table to this board about what we should do to move forward. That's my opinion.
Sounds good, Commissioner Bishop. Any other comments before we go back to the original motion? Okay, Commissioner King and then Commissioner Clyburn.
It must have been several weeks ago. I did call our superintendent and express to him my concerns about this. And I was very pleasantly pleased, and I believe that Dr. Witherspoon, you told me on the phone that you were, was it agnostic, meaning that you were neutral, that you could put in place, of course, that you didn't have any objections, and that, of course, protocols would be in place, just like they're in place in open meetings and in classroom, etc. But I really appreciated that, and so it's just time. With, of course, the protocols. No one is saying that the protocols don't have to be followed, of course. But anyway, that's it.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Clyburn.
So maybe this would be an IT question or communications. Oh, Ms. York, sorry, communications question. Our Richland One channel. I understand that we currently have a way for it to be viewed at some point. Our meetings, our board meetings. Is that correct?
Commissioner Clyburn, did you say on the Spectrum cable channel?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, it's a ladybird or something. Okay. But yeah, on the Richland One channel, so our meetings can be viewed. Is there maybe some possibility in the future where our meetings can be aired, at some point live, or is that in our capability or in the realm of possibilities? No?
I don't know about live on the cable channel.
Okay.
Obviously we have them live streamed on our website.
Right.
We would have to look at whether live on the Spectrum cable channel is a possibility.
Okay. I was just trying to, for someone that does not have the internet, if they could still view it at some point, so that if they have Spectrum, they can view at some point. The
yeah, they can view the recorded version now.
The recorded version.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Okay. Commissioner Bishop.
before you ask for the vote, or anyone calls for the vote, I just want to make sure that the motion on the floor.
Right, I'm
Yes,
gonna
can you
actually
repeat that?
have Commissioner King restate the motion, because of course, the debate and discussion has been pretty lengthy. So I will ask her to restate the request in just a second. Want to make sure that there are no other questions or comments from any board member.
I may have one more question after the motion has been stated.
Sir?
I may have one more question after the motion is stated.
And let me just clarify this before Ms. King speaks. Because one of my colleagues talked about self-inflicted wounds. A discussion about making safe decisions is never a self-inflicted wound. It is the responsibility of this board to sit and have debate and discussions on a matter such as we've done, to make sure we get the points and views from everybody at the table. So I just wanted to clarify that this is not self-inflicted wounds. This is healthy debate. Ms. King, if you will restate the motion for everyone.
I move that we put on the agenda for the next board meeting to reopen our regular board meetings to the public.
Okay, and it's been seconded already by Commissioner Lomanek. So Commissioner Bishop, do you have a question?
That's what the confusion is for me, is saying open to the public, and
we are
open, so you would want her to say in person, is what you're saying?
So you need to restate your.
I think that I'm
Or
just trying to get
do we want to
clarity
go ahead and
from
take up the
her.
vote as she stated? It's been second as she stated it.
Yes, right.
So we need to vote on that, and if there's a second motion or whatnot from someone, you can do that at that time, or you can amend this motion, it's up to you. But we can go ahead and take up this matter if there's no further debate or discussion.
What's to put on the agenda?
The request is to put on the next meeting's agenda to reopen to the public. And the question that Commissioner Bishop has raised is, we are open to the public. Should not the request have been in person? So that's where we are right now. Okay, Jana. Commissioner Myers and then Commissioner Lomanet.
Quick question, we just want to add it to the agenda so we'd be able to talk about the topic, or we added it to the agenda as if it's open to the public? I think I have a misunderstanding about the motion.
Right.
So,
And I think that's why Commissioner Bishop asked her to restate the motion so that he knows how he needs to vote, because the request is that on the next agenda, we vote to open to the public.
are we adding it to the agenda, or?
No, we're not adding it. We're taking a vote, and if it's unanimous, then we will add it to the agenda to vote on reopening to the public. But the point that Commissioner Bishop is making is that we're already open to the public, so should she have said it differently, but because it's already been motion and second as is, we will go forth as is. At the same time, we've also asked for legal information from the attorney that we would need to get if we want to make this vote based on law. So, Commissioner Lomanet.
I would ask Ms. Williams, the phrase open to the public is a legal phrase that I think means people are in here. Accessible to the public is what we are providing. And I'm not trying to split hairs, but we are being precise about that. So when you look at the laws and open, even ones that have live streamed, they have said that that is not open to the public, but it was legal because of the state of emergency. They were accessible to the public. So I just want to make sure that I think Commissioner King's initial motion is actually correct, but I would defer to Ms. Williams if she says that open to the public doesn't mean people can come in. I think that's what the law says, and accessible to the public is what we provided during the state of emergency.
But I don't think that's where we're at, Commissioner Lomanek. I think accessible, it goes back to what we've said originally. The public has access right now. So when you're saying what you're saying, it doesn't make sense along the lines of the public does have access. It goes back to the law that says we must educate a child. It doesn't tell us how, it just says we are required by law. So we're required by law to provide access to the meeting, which is what we've done. We did the live stream. It was a challenge, but we finally got it up and running, that the public has access to view the meeting and to also, they have access to give us comments. Now, to your point of not being able to send comments in for those individuals that don't have internet, you brought up a great point that we may need to look at even that. So the motion on the floor, it doesn't matter what might have been intended in the motion. The motion before us clearly says to put on the agenda at the next meeting to reopen to the public.
And what I mean when I seconded that, when I use the phrase open to the public, or when I second a motion that uses the phrase open to the public, I think that that's a legal phrase that means the public is allowed to come in. Because I'm not arguing what you were just saying a minute ago, but y'all were asking whether what she was moving was that we put on the agenda for the next meeting a discussion and vote on whether we will thereafter allow people to come to the meetings. And I think the phrase open to the public, I hear what you're saying about accessible. I'm not denying that these meetings have been accessible to the public, but I think that's legally different than the phrase open to the public. So I think her motion, the phrase open to the public, implies people in the meeting. So I just want to make sure that that's the motion that I seconded, and that's how I understand it. But if Ms. Williams, as the lawyer, has an opinion on that, I'm happy to defer to it.
Attorney Williams.
I think it's appropriate to have that discussion at the next meeting, as I stated previously, when we bring in all of the information, have all the information available for discussion, and discuss it at that time.
Well, so I seconded a motion, and I understood it to mean open to the public means people come in. I mean, if we need to amend it so that it's even more clear than that, but open to the public means that people are here as opposed to accessible to the public. And I thought that was the concern a minute ago about the wording of the initial motion. But I think that's what open to the public means.
Commissioner Clyburn.
So since that is a repetitive phrase, open to the public, you're meaning, to you it means people being in the building. So I took it upon myself to Google open to the public. It was a little tough, but it does use the word public, open for business, open, communal, accessible by the public, accessible to the general public, accessible to the public, available to the public, publicly accessible, publicly available, accessible to all. I mean, it just goes down. It does not say bodies in the building. I'm just using this as a reference. I'm looking down the list. It does not say that. So open to the public. I understand what you're saying, but I do not see physical bodies in the building. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's not my legal interpretation because I'm not a lawyer, but.
Thank you, Commissioner Clyburn. Commissioner Devine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. At this time, I move that we amend the motion by stating that we allow staff to continue to monitor the situation and report back to us at the next board meeting, next steps as to move forward with opening the meetings in person.
Second.
Okay, there is a motion, there's a substitute motion on the floor to allow staff to report back to us next steps in reopening to the public for in-person meetings. It's been properly seconded by Commissioner Bishop. We'll open the floor at this time for any questions or discussions on the second substitute motion. Commissioner Myers.
With that being said, we only talking about opening for the board meeting, nothing else in general that dealing with Richland one?
We will be talking specifically about the board meetings, correct, Mr. Devine?
Correct.
That is correct.
The regular board.
The regular board, yeah, the regular scheduled board meetings.
Thank you.
Okay, any other debate or discussion? Okay, seeing none, we will call for the vote on this particular item. A yes vote would be approving for the board, Dr. Witherspoon staff to be instructed to come back to us with information as it relates to next steps in reopening for in-person at the meetings. It's been properly seconded. We will now call for the vote.
Ms. Harris, can I make a distinction also that might also, I mean, it's not just information, there's got to be also information slash action. Obviously, I want these meetings to be accessible, open to the public according to the legal definition of in-person, because that's what the legal definition is. Or at least that's my understanding. But I want it by next meeting. I don't think there's anything that prevents us from doing it with, of course, the appropriate protocols that we've talked. So, I guess what we're talking about is that the next meeting is going to be closed, or open according to your definition, but closed to mine, but defer another meeting. But if that's what the majority votes for, I'm asking for information slash action, please.
Okay. All right.
Chair.
That's a good request.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Bishop?
Within this presentation, it will be legal
Right.
definitions.
Legal
correct?
definition, all of that be brought back to the board.
Just making sure, because
So when it says information, it's all of that. All right? We're going to take this vote manual because we are not set up to do it electronically. All those in favor of the motion that was made by Commissioner Devine, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, say nay.
No.
Okay. How many nays do we have?
2.
Ms. King? This is the substitute motion we're voting on. Nay?
Yes, nay.
Nay, okay. The ayes have it, the vote is 5-2, and I know, Eva, you're listening in, or we'll do a roll call so everyone will know how everyone voted on the substitute motion to provide information in the next steps, which also include legal, in the next steps of reopening for in-person attendance at the board meetings. Lomanak, your vote? I'm doing this for Eva because she's recording.
On Mr. Devine's. I voted
On
nay
Devine's motion?
Yeah, I voted nay, I'm sorry.
Nay. Okay, Myers?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes for Devine, yes for Harris?
Yes.
Yes for Clyburn, nay for King,
That's a yes.
and a yes for Bishop. The ayes have it. So Dr. Witherspoon, your staff is asked to bring that information before us at the next meeting. I believe the original motion fails, if I'm wrong. I think I'm correct. The original motion fails because it was unanimously voted and amended to change the original motion to vote on having the information provided versus us voting to come back in person. If I'm stating that correctly. Parliamentarian, correct me if I'm wrong.
Not unanimous, majority.
Majority, okay. Do we need to go back to the original motion?
That's
It died, okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on. We are actually still in board report, okay? Are there any other reports from board members at this time? Commissioner Clyburn.
So thank you so much, Chairwoman Harris. We recently lost another teacher, a longtime teacher, Juanita Wilson, over 40 years with Richland District 1. I believe she was at 3 high schools during her tenure here at Richland 1. One of the high schools, I graduated W.J. Keenan in 1991. She was there when I arrived at W.J. Keenan. Juanita Wilson, she was an English teacher, and she passed away recently. She was definitely a mother away from home, to a lot of our high school students and, throughout the district. I remember some days with her and her duo. They were a duo, Mrs. Smalls, Devon Richard Smalls. So they were a team. And I just wanted to definitely give condolences to her family and express condolences, on behalf of the school commissioners. Thank you so much. And I would yield to Commissioner Bishop, who is definitely a student as well.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Claiborne, for recognizing one of our precious jewels of Keenan High School, Hallow Halls. Ms. Juanita Wilson gave almost 49 years to public education. A graduate of Booker T. Washington, went to Allen University and stayed in this community to make sure students like myself and Angela Claiborne become a return on investment. So on Thursday, we will celebrate our life as a community and a family of students who has surrounded her only daughter as thousands and thousands of siblings. To Ms. Juanita Wilson and her family, we appreciate you as a district. We appreciate you as an alumni base of Keenan High School. I appreciate you just being a mother. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Bishop, and we certainly extend our condolences to the family and to all of our schools that were impacted by her death. It's something special about those lifelong teachers that have been with us, have raised us, and now helping to raise our children. So we certainly extend our condolences, and we know that you, along with Vice Chairwoman Claiborne, will represent us on Thursday at that homegoing celebration on behalf of the board. So we thank you in advance for that. If there are no other board reports, Commissioner Devine.
Thank you, Chairwoman Harris. Just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Witherspoon, to your staff. We talked about this at our last meeting regarding the publication. I did hear from several constituents who appreciate us sending this out. Ms. York, thank you to your team for putting this out. Just a mid-year edition, Spotlight One publication of the school district. Talks about the many things that are happening within the district. So one of 3 publications that we send out annually to our Richland One family and to local businesses as well. And so we just want to say thank you for this, and please read it. And thank you for having us printed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Devine. Before we go to Dr. Witherspoon, we had that down to say to Dr. Witherspoon, but again, I too want to thank, I'm finna call her Commissioner Karen York. I too want to thank Karen York over communication. I have heard from a lot of constituents that have received the Spotlight One as well. And they were excited to see what's happening in the district. I just say kudos to you all. Continue to do what you're doing, because what you don't know can hurt you. The more you know, the more you grow, and then the more you just simply know. So I appreciate you spotlighting the district, Dr. Witherspoon, and all that you're doing. And I know Dr. Witherspoon is talking about the QR code, hopefully putting that on the next publication so that our constituents, not just our parents, but our constituents are able to link in and they can receive those publications electronically as well and on an ongoing basis. So thank you so very much for that. At this time, guys, if there are no other board reports, we will now turn it over to Dr. Witherspoon to give us his superintendent's report. Dr. Witherspoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I did want to take this opportunity, I know he was in here, to introduce you all to Mr. James Brown. He is our new Director of Safety and Emergency Services. There he is. I'd like to welcome him as he comes on board. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next, we want to remind parents that Monday, January 31st, is the registration deadline for our pre-kindergarten programs for the 2022-2023 school year, and round one application deadline for our magnet programs. Go to our website at www.richland1.org/4K for information on pre-K registration, and go to richland1.org/choice for information on magnet programs application process. Since our last board meeting, we've learned that 2 more Richland 1 teachers have earned National Board Certification, which is the highest credential available in the teaching profession. Congratulations to Dion Boyd of Burnside Elementary School and Kathleen Pennyway of Dreer High School. Richland 1 now has 205 National Board Certified teachers. In addition to our newest National Board Certified teachers, 26 Richland 1 teachers either renewed their certification for 10 years or earned the National Board's Maintenance of Certification, which is a 5-year extension of their current certificate's expiration date. Their names and schools are posted on our website. I also want to extend congratulations to Brian Weston for being named the 2022 Betty Blanton Education Office Professional of the Year by the South Carolina Association of Education Office Professionals. Mr. Weston is an executive assistant in the Office of Executive Directors of Schools. He was named Education Office Professional of the Year by the association's Richland County chapter before being selected for this statewide honor. He will be recognized at the state level during an awards luncheon on February 4th. Again, congratulations to Mr. Weston and the work he does. On Friday, January 28th, the Columbia High School Gymnasium will be named and dedicated in honor of Coach Bobby Young, who served as the school's head girls varsity basketball coach for 38 years. The ceremony will be held during the halftime of the girls' basketball game against Batesburg-Leesville High School, which will begin at 5:30 p.m. Congratulations to Coach Young, and we thank him for his many years of service to Columbia High and Richland 1. We have several education-related observances during the year. At the last meeting, we saluted our board members in conjunction with the School Board Association School Board Recognition Month. January is also National Mentoring Month, and we thank all of the adults in our schools and in our community who serve as mentors to our students. Another month-long observance starts Tuesday. February is Career and Technical Education Month, which celebrates the value and achievements of CTE programs across the country. And of course, we have many outstanding CTE programs and opportunities for our students in Richland 1. And we are proud to offer all 16 nationally recognized career clusters. Richland 1 was the first district in the state of South Carolina with that distinction. Thank you to our CTE teachers, our staff, for all that they do in preparing our students for college and careers. I know many of us will be watching the Super Bowl for this year, 2022, on Sunday, February 13th. Again this year, Richland 1 has participated in the Super Bowl, S-O-U-P-E-R, Bowl of Caring, which is a nationwide initiative that uses the Super Bowl weekend to mobilize young people to fight hunger and poverty in our local communities. Leading up to the Super Bowl weekend, our schools and administrative buildings are collecting canned goods to benefit Harvest Hope Food Bank. This year's Reach the Goal, Tackle Hunger campaign begins on January 26th and goes through February 11th. Last year, Team Richland 1 collected 6,858 canned good donations. In conjunction with the Super Bowl of Caring, Friday, February 11th, will be Game Day Friday. Schools and district employees will wear their favorite NFL attire and paraphernalia to get into the Super Bowl spirit. Students will enjoy a special tailgating lunch on that day. And Madam Chair, board members, before we conclude the superintendent's report, I would like for Mr. Henry to come up and, we've had some power concerns here at Lower Richland High School that we have been working through. We did get the power with the use of a generator back up, but Mr. Henry, if you would give us a brief update on that situation, please.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Board Commissioners, Dr. Witherspoon. I'd be glad to. As everyone is aware, last Tuesday, Wednesday, we had partial power outages at Lower Richland High School, mostly affecting two of the major buildings here on campus, the H building and the J building. After further investigation, we found that the underground circuits feeding from the Dominion Power coming in to those buildings on campus had failed. That's a major deal because of the length of the wire there, the number of circuits. We also saw that we had some water intrusion into those electrical areas. So we have done some preliminary work there. We are presently working with facility services to bring in some experts in that area before we attempt to do repairs to make sure we don't have this happen again in the future. So we are presently on a skid-mounted tractor-trailer portable generator, which is parked out near the cafeteria at this time, and we will continue to service that generator until we have the systems replaced.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Witherspoon. Mr. Henry, you can go back to the mic. You already know there's going to be some questions about this. So the power outage that we had, and I'm glad we're talking about this publicly because I think it's important that our community and constituents know what's going on. Richland 1 did pay the electric bill.
Yes, ma'am.
So the power outage has nothing to do with that. And it's sad, but you have to clarify things like that today. With the generator, what is that costing us daily? Rough estimate.
Rough estimate, the generator is about $7,500 per week.
Okay, and does that include the diesel? Is running off of diesel, correct?
Diesel fuel, yes, ma'am. That would add another $2,000, $2,500.
So about 10 grand.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, here is my question to you, and I know that you are a product of this community as well as I am. We know the school very well. The concern that I have, and I've shared with Dr. Witherspoon, I'll share with my colleagues, is the school is 90-something years old. Portions of it is a little newer. H building, which happens to be an old building that we had, that we kind of refurbished. Going forth, you all are talking about having to rewire those buildings, if I'm correct, Mr. Carlin? We're talking about having to rewire those buildings. The lines. We're having to redo the lines. Right. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there an estimated cost to what that is going to cost? Because I hear that it's not cheap. Is there estimated? And I'm not knocking it because it has to be done. I want my colleagues to know the extent of what's going on, because I even have some further comments that I would like to make. But that wiring is pretty expensive, 6 figures possibly.
Yes, ma'am. The wire is very expensive. The rewiring of the building, I would not put it that way. Mm-hmm. We're actually replacing the feeder circuits to the building and not rewiring the building. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when we do that, because I know that whatever was happening on campus was doing something to Dominion's stuff as well out there, was knocking out some transformers or something?
Yes, ma'am. What happens is when you have a kind of a floating ground, things that happen, if we overload the Dominion power, then actually the fuses on the poles will blow so that we don't overload their circuit. So
Okay.
that's actually what happened.
So is there a timeline as to when, I know we are waiting on some things, some folk are coming in. Is there a timeline as to when we're going to be able to take the school off of a generator? Because that's practically what we're doing.
Yes, ma'am. There will be as soon as those experts tell us what's the best way to go for the repair.
And the lines that are feeding to those buildings are secured safely, that we're still able to have school with students on campus?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And has there been any discussion with the county outside of the conversation that I've had with them as it relates to some work that was done in the area as of recent? I know there was supposed to be a meeting today, but I think they had to cancel because of a family emergency. Dr. Witherspoon, you all will probably follow up with that?
We will be following.
And if you can please give that information back to us and to my colleagues. There are members of county council that are concerned about this and who could possibly be responsible, that it might be some issues that have happened around the school campus, because there's a lot of work going on. I didn't know about the utility stuff that was going on that was shared with me by county administrators. There's some other work that's been being done practically at 3 corners of the campus that could have impacted this because it was completed like right before we started having the issues. So if you all can just continue to keep the board, Dr. Witherspoon, keep us informed and updated, that we stay in close contact with county council as well. With such a steep ticket, someone's got to pay the bill, So I just want to put that out there and make sure my fellow colleagues know exactly what's going on, and because to have power outage of that magnitude is very interesting. It came completely out of the blue, even after having something like a 1,000-year flood didn't take us out. So why now? We do understand the school sits on a creek and so forth, but and it's on the rise, as they say, Bishop. But at the end of the day, it should not have taken out our school buildings like that, where our students are. Dr. Witherspoon, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Henry. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
Okay, the floor is open for any additional questions or comments for Dr. Witherspoon on his report. Okay, seeing none and hearing none, we have one announcement before we dismiss. Our next regular scheduled meeting of the Richland 1 Board of Commissioners will be held on Tuesday, February the 8th of 2022 at Drury High School at 3319 Millwood Avenue in Columbia, South Carolina. If there's no further discussion or comments from the board, we can consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night.